Grog.
Hello and welcome to the Sideshow podcast. I'm Peter Fickling and today it's just me and Kerry Warbis. Matthew is top-knotted, half-naked and frolicking in the Algarve sunshine. So hello Matthew and Kerry, how are you doing?
I'm good. He showed us a photograph earlier, didn't he, of himself on the beach, and I've never seen a paler man in my life. So I was quite baffled as to how he can live in Portugal and be so very, very white.
Yeah, it's like one of the you expected to see him being held by a kind of bemused fisherman, sort of with a sort of like the tagline, strange fish dug up from sea depths or something. It was, like almost translucent. You can see his inner organs underneath the skin.
Exactly that. I mean, he looked great, but bloody hell, he is pale.
Yeah, and very proud of his nipples as well. That was something he referred to.
He did, but he'd cut them off the photo.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I did have a look, and they weren't there.
Strangely, when Matthew sent a photo and it says refers to his nipples, I don't hit the image to expand it. I'm quite happy to just deal with the preview.
Would you do that if I sent you one like that, though, Peter?
That's a difficult question to answer. I think that I would be very. I think my surprise that you had sent me a nude photo would probably be would be greater than that would be. Let's put it this way: the photo would be the last of my problems. I think. I think I'd probably go through to Charlotte and say, Charlotte,
she's lost it.
Yeah, I think Kerry sent me a cry for help. I think you need to drive down to Brighton because this is very out of character. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. It is. I wouldn't do that. Sorry, Charlotte. I definitely wouldn't.
No. Yeah, I haven't felt huge waves of jealousy from Charlotte over the last year. That's actually a very good point. This is the first time that Kerry and I have done a podcast, just the two of us. After this is pretty much our year anniversary, isn't it, Kerry?
Yeah, it could well be, couldn't it?
Give or take, since we were hastily thrown together to help out on a rival podcast, although many moons ago.
Used and abused.
Well, rumours abound.
Yeah, we survived.
Yeah, exactly. This is half podcast, half support group.
Yeah.
But moving swiftly on. So Vince Casey's daughter got married, and I vaguely remember you not thinking a huge amount about that episode, or have I misremembered?
Well, we WhatsApped about it and I was like, oh, that was a very odd wedding. First of all, it was on a Sunday, wasn't it? But maybe the episode was a Sunday, but that doesn't mean the wedding was a Sunday, does it really? Because they shift time around, don't they? Sometimes it could have been on a Monday or a Saturday. Don't know. But the main thing that struck me about the wedding really was the sort of snobbery that was involved.
Yes.
Did you? There were lists upon lists of sort of derision about things like, oh, they're getting through a load of champagne. It was a couple of dozen bottles already. They'd practically not even walked through and sat down. Then laughing at the couple in gold because they look like a couple of Oscars. Although Lily did say they look amazing, but had to mention that they're next to the chocolate fountain. And a photo booth was mentioned and a terrible facelift. And
sounds fun.
Yeah, I know, but it was like a litany of cliches, really, wasn't it?
Steph was sort of very keen to point out the 50,000 diamante pearlescent sort of studs or whatever it was, or diamonds, but because Swarovski crystals that made up her dress. So there was a lot of snobbery like you say, directed at them, and I was offended. I was offended by it, but it's kind of more because but I think I've referred to it before, like when it's to do with the Grundys, anything that's not from one of the rich, none of the, if Brian and Jennifer rolling around in their Hunter Wellies with some kind of like padded Barber jackets on. I mean, that's just as naff as a chocolate fountain or a kind of like a sparkly dress, isn't it? I mean, that kind of cliche country squire look for me is just as naff.
I mean, they're all cliches, aren't they? You can't get away from that. I just thought it was funny to cram quite so many in. There was a pick and mix cart. There was someone with extensions that they had to mention, hair extensions, and then the microblading of eyebrows, which Ruth had no idea. Did you know what microblading was, Peter, until
I think I did
before Sunday? Yeah,
I think I did. I think it's one of those things I could have taken a stab at. But this is what Matthew and I were missing last week, Kerry. Your intense eye for detail. We being kind to us, we're taking a lot more of a helicopter view on the show. So yeah, because if I feel like I mean, I could a couple of those things I can remember. But it's very
Mm.
impressive your sort of recall.
Yeah, I just was struck by it and then became obsessed by it. After the first 2 or 3, I had to write them all down, really. Yeah, Lily and Lizzie getting ready for the wedding. There was an early bit in that where, I thought there was a bit of hypocrisy 'cause, Lily was chiding Lizzie, and I know we've been told off for saying Lizzie actually, haven't we, by someone on Twitter? We should say Elizabeth, because nobody says Lizzie apart from Nigel, and he's dead. But anyway, Lily was saying to Lizzie about Vince, "That's no excuse for him lying to you," as if and then I was just thinking, "But you slept with someone behind Russ's back, you hypocrite."
It was very strange that Vince was ever in trouble in the first place. I mean, he
Mm,
should have just owned. It seemed weird that he did it. He should have just owned up to Lizzie, and Lizzie's forgiveness seemed very obvious. Like you wouldn't throw away a whole relationship over a misunderstanding like that. So just the
mm,
fact that that Lily was slagging Vince off behind his back struck me as strange in the first place. And yeah,
yeah,
as you say, especially when she's really not in any place to criticize. But maybe this is what the scriptwriters are doing. They're just kind of like they're just trying to keep it front and center in our mind the whole time that Lily is
yeah,
really is swimming around in a kind of soup of kind of moral ambiguity at the moment.
mm, true.
Everyone's been very harsh on Russ recently about him kind of like freeloading off Elizabeth's
Mm.
Elizabeth's generosity.
Mm.
But isn't that true of Lily and Freddie as well? I mean, they both got sort of jobs at home. I mean, and I'm sure they're very good at them, but neither of them are contributing. Or is Lily still working at the call center?
Yeah, I think Lily's still flogging kitchens, isn't she, or something?
Is she? I thought that was over, and she'd sort of gone back home to sort of look
Oh, to
after
sort the
Elizabeth.
office out.
Or am I just getting confused?
Dunno, I don't care, but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I guess they are her kids though, aren't they? It's slightly different.
Absolutely, but just sort of it's not like Russ is out on his own as the only person kind of like
No.
picking up crumbs from the table. There's plenty of other people, and why not? I mean, and also the other thing is, if Elizabeth wants to spoil Russ and give him a stupid job that doesn't really matter at a completely empty art gallery, that's up to her.
Mm, yeah. There was a good bit with Vince and Lizzie as well, where because Vince was talking about his worry about Beth, the daughter, or not liking her boyfriend. He actually said, "I hate him."
Mm.
I can't remember why, to be honest, what he'd done that was bad. But then he said to Lizzie, "You'd be the same. You wouldn't stand by, would you, if one of your kids took up with a wrong 'un like that or something?" I
Oh,
was
they
like,
are the wrong uns.
Lily and Ross. Lizzie really didn't kick up much of a stink about that, did she?
But I think Elizabeth's kind of like sort of the generation. Maybe I'm of that generation as well. Of kind of I'm not just their parent. I'm their friend as well. Or like,
Mm.
hey class, don't call me Mr. Rogers. Call me Paul. It's kind of that sort of
Mm.
painfully kind of.
Liberal sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think sort of Elizabeth's probably sort of like choked down a lot of her sort of distaste
Mm.
for that sort of stuff. For those goings on.
Bit strange though, isn't it, when your daughter's being
I mean, I wouldn't
pursued
be
by a
over the moon
teacher?
if my
No.
my little girl brought home a sort of an oily, smug, up himself paedophile.
No, not
No,
really.
it's not what wouldn't be my dream, but I'd defend her right to date an oily, smug paedophile. If saying it is
Yeah.
legal, but
You wouldn't get your best crockery out, would you, for him?
no, no,
Probably.
no, I don't. No, I don't think. I mean, this is Matthew said this last week. Our love for Russ is purely for
Mm.
the extraordinary levels of entertainment he brings.
Yeah, I was gutted he did not appear in the, Tracy and Lily, sort of dinner party thing where Tracy was trying to sort Chelsea out.
Yeah, that felt a bit crammed in, didn't it? It felt sort of
Mm.
like, I mean, it's always nice to hear Tracy on the Archers, but it did feel a bit kind of like, oh God, do we really? Like it that could have been an episode for me. Like
Mm.
like you said, Russ could have been there, and we could just, that would have been great to be sat at the table and heard all of the kind of social awkwardness and sort of Lily sort of maybe receiving one or two messages she shouldn't, and sort of like, sort of maybe having to take a call from Sol or something, or that would have been a
Yeah.
really fun episode. But yeah, so I mean, I guess they have to move the plots on somehow, but it did feel a little bit rushed, all of that stuff.
I actually wanted to know more about what Tracy was going to, or Jazza as well, were gonna rustle up for the dinner party. So all we really got from that was that there were paper serviettes that she was fiddling about with, and she made amazing chicken dish. Don't know what that was, but Lily loved it, and I think that was it, wasn't it? Chicken and serviettes and some wine that she was happily wanting to be topped up.
I mean, I assume that Tracy's a very good cook. I don't know why. I just sort of just seems kind of personal. She's she doesn't. I think being a good cook is mainly about not being scared of making mistakes and having a go, isn't it? Otherwise, you get stuck in your ways. So
Yeah.
I'd say Tracy's personality sets her up for that. Like, she's definitely the sort of person who'd happily ruin a bit of food to get better at cooking.
Yeah, because on Twitter, I think people were sort of jokingly saying that she would make, something terrible and obvious, like chicken dippers and baked beans or something simplistic.
I mean, there is a lot of snobbery, like you said earlier on, that
Yeah.
swirls around about the Archers from the audience, and and I include myself in that. I mean, because there's all different kinds of snobbery, and I can be, as I've started to soften on Helen recently, it has made me realise how sort of irrational my hatred of her has been over the last, years. Like, it's sort of like ferocious. It's just, a rather petty need to sort of be constantly entertained, and she doesn't do that. But yeah, sort of, but yeah, I do get a bit confused when I see people kind of like just sort of attacking Tracy or Susan or the Grundys for these kind of like minor social indiscretions.
Yeah, your hatred of Helen is not irrational, Peter, by the
Have
way.
you not softened on her a bit
No.
recently? Not at all.
Why? No, not really. No, no, no.
I think it's kind of like a sort of fueling the engine thing. I just don't think I had the energy to keep up that amount of wrath towards her. So once she started to sort of behave a bit more humanly around humanely. That's not humane. Anyway, more like a human around Lee. I sort of felt. I think I felt sort of the Thor. The Thor was unstoppable.
Oh, well, fair play to you. You're a better man than I am
Won't happen for
because
Shula.
I'm not one. Yeah. And then at the end, Beth and Vince made up, didn't they? They sort of had a bit of they danced, didn't they, to the walls come tumbling down by the
Yeah,
Style Council.
that was agonisingly cringy, that scene. But I guess heartwarming as well.
Yeah, they always have the song that fits the bill, don't they, as well?
How can you dance to that song?
Well, you can't, can you? I
No,
mean,
isn't it just like sort of rather inept pogoing? Isn't that the only thing you can do to that?
it's quite a frantic one, isn't it? I quite like the song. It's a good one to sort of sing along to. But yeah, dancing, I'm not sure how they all manage that.
Mm. It does explain how we don't have an international reputation for romance when that's like the kind of song that can sort of have us rushing onto the dance floor. Uncles with ties around their foreheads are going to who did that song?
It's the Style Council.
Oh, right, of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, Paul Weller. Yeah, he's on my Shula list. I think.
Oh, is he?
Bit of a prick, isn't he?
I don't know enough about him.
The characters I don't like in the Archers, you can then sort of extrapolate from that the people I wouldn't like by reputation, sort of famously. So, Elvis Costello, Paul Weller, Sting, all these men. The thing they have in common is they are incredibly pleased with themselves. And so
Ah.
that, I think that's my biggest sort of like red flag in a character or a human being, is someone who's too pleased with themselves.
Yeah. Is Elvis Costello pleased with himself?
That's how he comes across to me. I'll happily
Okay.
be, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. And hello@thesideshed.com email is where you can tell me I'm wrong and send me examples of Elvis being a humble and incredibly sort of reasonable man. But
I tell you someone who isn't pleased with themselves. This is a segue to die for.
I sense that.
Yep. Can you sense it? It's so subtle. Brian.
Oh, he was
Oh.
very supportive. This, I mean, he was his sort of bumbling, controlling, manipulative, self-serving self, as always. But he was very gentle with Jenny afterwards, and incredibly sort of regretful about the
Mm.
state of his family, and you could hear how beaten up he was.
Yeah, but, you know, the interview, right, with Barnaby and Stella. Barnaby was a mini Brian, who Brian had obviously sort of vastly encouraged to apply and pretty much had said, "You'll get it," to him by the sounds of it, which isn't great. But the fuss about Brian wanting to lead the interview, I thought was a bit odd because he has been doing that job for decades. And why shouldn't he lead it? I know
Yeah.
it's all sort of, not very feminist of me to say that, but it was.
Or incredibly feminist of you to see it purely as a question of competence and
Mm,
especially because it's a family. I think,
mm,
like, obviously, gender plays a role in a family, but, that it's we all know that, Jenny is the matriarch of that family. Brian is nowhere near, and he does not have the whip hand at all.
mhm. Yeah, as it turned out, didn't it? Because quite apart from the fact that Jenny said, "Come on now, let's all be respectful," so she sort of dealt with the bickering pair, which she later referred to, which was quite sweet. But she decided on the actual pay, didn't
Yeah.
she, that Stella was going to get. And I thought Kate was a bit out of order saying, why should you lead it? We should all have an equal say.
I felt sorry
Mm.
for the actress playing Kate.
Mm.
I actually thought that going through it, it was just like, it was so clunky. She's been very obviously contrarian to kind of move the plot,
Mm.
and it was
Yeah,
annoying, and not in a kind of funny, "Oh, isn't Kate ridiculous" way, but just in a kind of like, "Oh, shut up, Kate," you know?
yeah. Her hemp tea and the tea temples. I didn't know that tea temples existed.
Did you hear Brian step aside about the hemp tea?
Say that again.
Did you hear, the way that, Charles Collingwood, played it when Brian was reacting
Oh,
to the
yeah.
hemp tea?
Yeah,
Absolute perfection.
I know. He sort of went, "Hemp,"
Hemp tea.
and laughed. Yeah, like we all were,
Yeah, put in a
probably.
little chuckle.
Oh, he did an Oscar-winning, I wrote a note about it, an Oscar-winning laugh. I think it was when Stella, it was a stifled laugh, was saying about, "I used to work for this dysfunctional family. I can see that I won't have a problem with that here." And Brian sort of just did this fantastic, strained laugh, at that point. Please do listen out for that in the omnibus,
I
everybody.
mean, this is one of the first of many negative marks against, Stella. Is that, when you go for an interview, you're interviewing the people as well as being interviewed. I mean, and she didn't pick up that Kate's an absolute Fruit Loop. And of course, Adam was on the call as well, and Debbie.
Mm.
Debbie, who pretends to be sane, but Adam is completely cuckoo. I mean, you assume that half the interview was just him sort of wanging on about his various plans, and you know the
Yeah.
the incredible gift of his long term dreams that Stella was going to be able to pick up.
Yeah, and Stella saying, "My mother is a hairdresser, my father is a lorry driver. I've got no farming background, but because I was a bit rambunctious as a teen, they sent me to the young farmers." Is that what happens? Do people get sent to the young farmers like being sent to a nunnery?
Yeah, in America, it's military school. In rural West England, it's the young farmers. I mean, maybe this is what should have happened to Matthew. He's from the West Country. Maybe a spell in the young farmers would have straightened him out. He wouldn't be flashing his see-through nipples on unsuspecting passers-by on Portuguese beaches.
But even I know the young farmers is all about partying, isn't it? And it's people who are in a farming family already, isn't it?
I mean,
Normally.
I only know about it from the Archers, so
Mm.
I assume that the version we hear is far from the truth. But I mean, do you have any, when you were up in Yorkshire? Did you sort of like have any run-ins with the young farmers?
Oh God, no, 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 no. I was in Wakefield. No farmers around there. It's quite near the Rhubarb Triangle. That's another story. Um, no,
That sounds like a euphemism for something, and I'm trying
I
to
know.
decide what. Right. or
It's quite famous, the rhubarb triangle. Have you heard of it?
oh, like someone's like I've had the trots and I've got my arse is like a Japanese flag.
Yeah,
You know,
rusty sheriff's
exactly. It's
badge or
like, yeah,
something.
oh god, I had a curry last night. I've got a right rhubarb triangle. Think maybe, something like that. Anyway,
No, I've never ever really actually come across a young farmer, but
I wish I could say, oh no, Peter, come on. No need for that. That's disgusting. I mean,
but I
this is
think
degenerating. Yeah.
but people know of their existence, don't they?
Yes.
I
But
don't know. I didn't know you got sent to them if your mum was a hairdresser and your dad was a lorry driver, as if that would sort you out somehow.
yeah. And again, back to what you're saying about snobbery. It's like, okay, right, okay, yes, thank you. Sledgehammer, subtle dropping of kind of cliched sort of down to earth jobs to sort of root Stella. Her name's in the stars, but she's grounded.
Oh, yeah.
So that was well done, script writers. I mean, they have a very difficult job. I mean, any of these little
Yeah.
snippy comments are not meant to be. I wouldn't do any better. I would, but no, I wouldn't do any better. I absolutely would. But yeah, I don't want to be too snippy about them. They do, generally do a fantastic job.
There was some good tweets about the fact that she's called Stella and how will Alice cope if people are talking about Stella all the time, which I know is awful, but it's funny too, isn't it?
I did waste about 5 minutes of my life when I was writing the title for this week's episode to suggest to you and Matthew trying to work out how to get a wife beating joke in to do with Jenny and Brian, but I failed.
Yeah, that would go down well. Yeah. Yeah. So poor Brian, he was kind of browbeaten. He said, "I might as well not be here," didn't he? And Jenny was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And she said, "Well, it's just like when you felt you were detached when Adam was leaving Home Farm."
Well, he's gone full Matt Busby or Bill Shankly. I think that's the right Liverpool manager. Where was it Bill Shankly who they eventually had to say to him, "You are no longer welcome at the ground." The same thing with Matt Busby. Like, it's like, look, you were the manager and now you are welcome to go and sit in the hospitality box and hand out biscuits. But this is very much Brian retired. Was it 3 years ago? Maybe longer. And he's still kind of like whining, why am I still involved? It's like, you're supposed to be building train sets with Tony. You're not supposed to be on the farm, but sort of bothering people.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for Brian staying at the centre of things. I'm just saying, like, factually, he shouldn't be anywhere near it.
Yeah, he is still quite hands-on, isn't he? Which I really like. I mean, I really enjoyed that episode, actually. I know Kate was a bit annoying, but I liked the Brian, Jennifer, especially the bit where Jennifer said about the bickering, and it reminded me suddenly I was Jennifer again, stopping Kate and Brian bickering kind of thing, and longing for that normality again. I thought that
Yeah,
was quite a tender moment.
that spoke to me a little bit because I think that's something we've all gone through with the whole COVID situation. Is like my number one desire, I'm yearning to be bored and have a tedious routine. That's all I want. And I think like I mean, it's different for everyone, but that's how I feel. And so yes, you can imagine for Jenny the idea of a family row over a Sunday roast would be just like her dream.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was quite well played, really, and well written.
Yeah.
That little bit. Yeah, then Susan and Neil. Good heavens.
Well, yeah, I feel really, really bad for them, but sorry, and I have said this before, but am I mad for just feeling like this disintegration of their marriage has just been sprung from nowhere? Like it feels like just a couple of weeks ago that they were like, they were
The
sort of like,
golden couple.
yeah, well,
as Susan
they're
referred.
going at it hammer and tongs, and there was kind of all kinds of little sort of jokes about, their sex life. Also, all the affection, like how supportive Neil was when she was doing Radio Susan. So I feel like it's disintegrated too fast, and the problem is that it was summed up this evening, right? Her embarrassed and awkward silences at the meal with Neil still sounded 1,000 times more fun than hanging out with Shula. Like, so it just doesn't. It's just not plausible, and it was really awkward and sort of horrible to listen to when Neil was kind of like lavishing praise on Shula the other day, and we know that Shula's now in love with him and all this sort of stuff. It's just like, oh God, it just didn't feel plausible that Neil would throw away his marriage with his lovely Susan for this monstrosity.
I know, but I think it's more subtle than that and more layered, because Neil's pretty oblivious to a lot of what's going on. He's oblivious to how the depths of doom that Susan's feeling, and he's also oblivious to the heights of passion that Shula is feeling.
True.
So there's that. Then there's poor Susan. She is absolutely frazzled, knackered, poor woman. And if there's a little, once that seed of doubt and mistrust is sown in your mind about your other half, it does play with your rationality, doesn't it? Or
Yeah.
I'm not rationalizing functions. I don't know.
That's true. I thought about that the other day. I got sort of I had a bit of kind of like I was feeling a bit beaten up from something I'd been through
Mm,
before. And I realized that I was in sort of infecting a new situation with my kind of like
mm.
paranoia because of the past. So I know what you mean. It's sort of, yes, you can completely distort a situation just because of your fear and your sort of
Yeah.
anxiety. Yeah.
Which is why every time Neil was sort of going, "Oh, you look lovely," and "Oh, they've really done out the interior very well, haven't they?" And she,
This lamb is cooked perfectly, Susan.
yeah, yeah, I know. I love his voice. But when he said about the redecoration of Grey Gables, she went, "What you mean? Because of that explosion that nearly killed my sister?" It was like every time he tried to say something nice. And, he said, "Oh, your hair, you've done something different, haven't you?" And at first, there were little hints of her getting quite excited when he was saying nice stuff. She was very thrilled that he'd noticed. And then there was this tragic thing about, "I got my curling tongs out that I haven't touched for sort of 30 years, and I wasn't sure if they still worked." Um, so there were little moments where you thought, "Oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And then he bloody mentioned Shula. And from the point of him mentioning Shula, which, as I've mentioned earlier, he's oblivious to why that's quite so potent.
Mm,
Then Susan went super prickly then, um, didn't she? It was from that point
yeah.
doomed fully. Even though I told a really terrible sort of little thing. "Oh, do you remember when I ordered pavlova and you wanted to swap it for the tiramisu or something?" And she went, "I want to go home."
Yeah. I did, I put out a tweet saying you might have to
Mm.
talk me through some of the show, and I think, yeah, there's bits and bobs there that I just didn't hear because
Ah, yeah.
my son was kind of going, a bit berserk. Yeah, I did hear all the stuff with the tiramisu at the end, and
Mm.
it was very sad to hear sort of Susan giving in. That's just not her personality, is it?
Yeah.
And she kind of referred to that herself, like, with her
Mhm.
chat with Pat, and
Mm.
how she's kind of got that kind of sort of inner confidence, and she sort of she sort of like, maybe this is my word, not hers, but a kind of almost a kind of a sort of obnoxious swagger when it came to her sort of marriage, like a sort of like a total
Yeah.
confident. And what was it she said? Oh yeah, I'd be bursting with stuff to say when I came home, and
Yeah.
all this, looking forward to talking to him. So it's poor Susan.
Mm.
I mean, but the thing is, though, Kerry, is she has to look after that baby because there's no one else to do it. There's no one else to help her look after that baby. She has to look after the baby. So that's it. That's the end of it. She's just gonna have to be tired.
Well, is she? There's loads of other people who could
Like
help,
who?
aren't there?
Like who? Like Chris? Could Chris help? I mean, that's
Yeah.
impossible. Like any of her family, could they help? I mean, that's none of them have
No.
had kids. What about Jenny and Brian? They couldn't possibly help. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like they're involved.
Pat did my head in as well when poor Susan was opening up to Pat, saying, "My Neil, he's drifting away from me. I thought we were the golden couple. We never have time together, blah, blah, blah." And she was like, yeah. And then Pat said something like, "Oh, it was difficult for me and Tony at one point. I had depression. He didn't quite understand it. So what we did was we made an effort to have time together and to communicate." And Susan's like, "Oh, yeah, that would be nice to be able to do." And Pat
In
didn't offer
theory.
to help, did she?
Yeah.
Like, "I can have Martha. I'll come and
You
babysit for
know
an
why
evening."
I haven't been here the last few months? Because I've been on compassionate leave, you idiot. But what she gone should have gone and talked to Lillian, who would, of course, march round to Neil's workplace with a haversack full of boner pills and, and absolutely had it out with him. That's,
Mm.
that's the solution to everything. Go to Lillian.
Yeah, I know. It's just disappointing when people are sort of seeing Susan in that state and saying, "You really should, make time for each other, but don't offer to help with that."
Yeah, there's full Gwyneth Paltrow, isn't it? Yeah,
Mm.
have you tried a 3,000 pound yoni egg and a facial scrub? Because that might be just the thing you need. Like, or take a couple of weeks off in one of my exclusive spas in the Seychelles.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I know, and, even Chris was a bit annoying with this, "You can have a couple of hours off up the road at Grey Gables, we've all chipped in."
Oh, he sounded very happy with himself.
Yeah, as if he'd sorted everything. It's like, don't really understand why he's not doing more. I know he's got a job, but, lots of parents have jobs.
Yeah, it's. I get that he works for himself. It's difficult to you don't
Mm,
have a team of people who can sort of share the load. If you don't do it, your client's going to go somewhere else. So fair enough. I do understand that. But
mm,
equally, like he does. He's a young man. I mean, I managed to go partying every night, go to the gym every day, and work a full shift, and basically just like at his age, I don't know how I did it,
mm.
but I didn't see sunlight. I didn't see sunlight for for a few years in my late 20s. I know he's a bit older than that, but it just seems ridiculous that he needs this full 9 hours, 8 hours. It's like Susan's thrashing herself to pieces, and
Yeah,
she's 60 on
yeah,
the nose.
exactly.
Like, it just
Mm,
seems absolutely crazy he can't find a bit more energy.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, and like when Neil did say to Susan, didn't he? Um, "I think maybe we're just tired." And I was thinking, "Well, yeah, maybe you are." I don't know, and then I doubted that because I think, does Neil have something for Shula really? And it was very well done. I found it very sad, and even at the end when he got home and said, "Let's have some hot chocolate and snuggle up on the sofa and watch that thing we've been watching," and she
mm.
went, "No, I want to go to bed."
Oh, hot
That
chocolate.
was yeah,
We had a hot chocolate after the show.
but he could have said, "All right, I'll come up to bed with you then."
Yeah, yeah, no, true. I mean, it's
And I was willing him to say, "I love you, Susan."
yeah. I mean, you've. This is the thing. I mean, I think sometimes I need to take more time to actually kind of emotionally connect with the Archers, because I think sometimes I do kind of like listen a bit dispassionately. Like the scene in Clash of the Titans when all the gods are sitting there playing with the chess pieces.
Mm,
I think that's sometimes my kind of slightly lofty and sort of removed view of the
mm,
whole thing. And when you say these things, it does remind me that actually there is a depth to it that I perhaps sometimes don't tap into.
mm. Oh,
Yeah.
I've just remembered another funny bit though when Susan and Pat were speaking. Um, Susan was sort of crying and saying, "We barely speak apart from sniping," and Pat went, "That's normal." And I was thinking, "Yeah, it's bloody normal for you, Pat. That's all you do.
Yeah.
Snipe, snipe, snipe."
It was not nice to hear from Pat. It wasn't nice to hear from Pip. Pip and Pat back
Oh,
this
Pip.
week.
Oh, she's so revolting, Pip, isn't she? The minute she appeared, it was nag, 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 nag. You're meant to open the gate. I'm trying to. Oh God, poor Ben. I literally,
And
yeah.
Josh was bumbling. But
Mm,
he wasn't trying to. He was listening. He might have made some jokes
yeah.
at Ben's expense, but he offered to listen. And when Ben
Mhm,
was still obviously a bit still hadn't worked it out in his head, he said,
mm,
"I'll get another beer," which is a kind of a shorthand for let's keep this conversation needs to keep on going.
yeah.
So yes, Josh was kind of wasn't ideal, but at least his kind of heart was in the right place. Pip couldn't wait to sort of bash Ben around and give him all, lecture him and sort of like point out his shortcomings and laugh straight in his face about it all.
Yeah, I know. And actually, Josh and Pip's advice was polar opposites, wasn't it? Because Josh said, don't rush into making a decision about anything. And whereas Pip sort of went, oh, well, 10 months in, if you're having any doubts, you shouldn't stay together.
I kind of agreed. Well, I didn't agree with that bit. I did, but I kind of agreed with both of them. I agreed with Josh when he said, relationships don't magically sort of, they're not magically brilliant. There needs to be effort, and you should, if you want to make things good with Evie, you can kind of, you have to commit to it.
Yeah.
But then equally, like Pip's point that when you're 19, you're allowed to split up after 10 months and just say, you know what, yeah, not for me.
It's highly unlikely that at 19 you have found the one, isn't it? Really.
I always like those couples. It's you get this all the time, like the couples who met, like in the first year of university, kind of like were together for a couple of years, split up, had a series of other relationships, and then got back together again. And I always think that's like the kind of the ideal. So you have that whole kind of childhood sweetheart thing. You've known each other through thick and thin, but also you're not going to be living a life kind of wondering what if,
Yeah.
Charlotte and I went to school together, but didn't know each other.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I met her when I met her through basically I moved back from Asia and I needed somewhere to live, so I was going to try and live. I got interviewed to live in a flat with another person I went to school with and didn't know. And anyway, so my flatmate was one of Charlotte's school friends, and so that's how I met Charlotte.
Oh,
But yeah, we went to the same school, but just different years.
Yeah. Oh,
Anyway,
how
so yes,
funny.
so in a strange, not at all true kind of way, we are childhood, not sweethearts.
When you then chatted about the fact that, oh my God, we were at the same school, did you obviously, I presume, know the same sort of teachers, some
Not
of the
really.
same people there? Oh, right, okay.
No, there's no very little of that.
Are you about 20 years older than her?
Yeah. When I say went to the same school, I was teaching there.
Yeah, are you Russ? You
Yeah. Anyway,
bastard.
yeah. Her mum runs a stately home.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. How is the gallery?
Oh, it's actually people have been saying that my those Basquiat style knockoffs that I've been putting up were not going to make any money, but they really have done quite well.
Oh, good. Good
Thank you
on
very
you.
much.
I'm very, very pleased.
Yeah.
Oh dear. It was funny when Jennifer did that exposition about Ambridge as well. That's just propped up in my mind. When she was saying, "Oh, Grey Gables, marvelous restaurant. My son-in-law's the chef." And I've just seen Susan, who's my daughter's mother-in-law.
This is going to be where technology kicks in, like AI, and those bits you won't hear if you're a seasoned listener.
Yeah.
Kind of, it'll be like, okay, it'll sense that you're, you don't. We'll hear a different version where she talks, she just kind of like it says more. If it's like, yeah, because they do need to. I mean, you do realize they do need to keep new listeners informed about some of the stuff.
Fair enough. It's fair enough.
A new
And you would
characters need to
explain that sort of thing to a newcomer like Stella, wouldn't you? I suppose it was just funny to hear.
Did you not think that it sort of revealed just how incestuous the whole place was?
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Jenny kind of joked about that a little bit herself, but I was listening to it thinking, God, this really does show how sort of tiny this little environment is.
What did you think of Stella sort of turning down the holiday cottage? Because she said, part of the reason she wanted the pay increase was because her previous role involved accommodation, and Brian was like, "Oh, we've got the holiday cottage," and Stella went, "What? Those places we've just passed? No, thanks."
Yeah, very sensible of her. I mean,
Did she mean location-wise, or was she dissing the holiday cottages as being not great?
I mean, I was projecting onto the situation, I guess, but I've had many friends who've worked above pubs they've lived in, and they just spend all their wages in the pub, and their whole life just becomes being in that pub. As I think that work accommodation can become a gilded cage sometimes. It seems like a great idea, but you're now like any emergencies, guess who's on site?
Yeah.
You don't have any privacy. That kind of work-life balance is skewed. I mean, I think she did exactly the right thing. It's like, no, you
Okay.
give me the right amount of money and I'll find my own accommodation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fair enough. If that was what she didn't want to live where she's working, that's fine. I just
Mm.
got a whiff of her going, "Oh no, I don't want to live in those cottages."
Don't forget,
But
Kerry, she is the daughter of a lorry driver and a
oh
hairdresser, so
yeah.
maybe she's not. But
I do actually love that actress. I like Lucy Speed a lot. In the days when
where do I know her from?
in the days when I did used to watch EastEnders sometimes. I used to watch it when I did the ironing when the kids were little. So I'd watch the EastEnders omnibus whilst ironing on a Sunday, I think it was. And she was in it then. She's really good. I just get the feeling she's a cracking sort of woman. But yeah, and she's already been on the Twitters, hasn't she? Sort of saying how much she's looking forward to being a part of it.
I think she's obviously, here for a while. I mean,
Mm,
maybe she'll be a Charlie Thomas. Was that his surname? She'll be a Charlie
yeah.
style, big character for half a year and then off. That could be plausible. But I'm looking forward to getting to know her a bit more. And they've painted her
Mm,
role on the farm in big, bold, bright letters, haven't they? She's going to
yeah.
wind Brian up something absolutely rotten. Or are we going to have another affair? You're
Oh
Brian, Kerry. In
no.
a while,
Oh my goodness. Could he?
Brian's in the office poring over tilling and sewing plans. Suddenly there's a rainstorm. She rushes in, soaked to the skin. Oh, you poor thing, says Brian. Throws his coat around her.
Mm.
And their eyes meet.
Oh no.
You're Brian.
Yeah.
He's got previous.
Oh well. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. Do you know? I assume I mean I've listened to the Archers for a long, long time, but I mean I've
Mm.
taken some holidays. I don't remember any of the Siobhan plot at all.
Oh God, I do. I remember listening to all of that. It felt bloody awful, to be honest. I mean, any sort of cheating is horrific to
Yeah.
me, in my mind. If you want to do all of that, don't be with the person you're with.
That was sort of that tied into the whole. I thought that was a lovely. Ben felt sort of sick by dumping someone,
Mm,
and kind of he was sort of racked by just even the thought of cheating
yeah.
on Evie. So it was quite sort of it was interesting to see him sort of like dealing with that. Now that's another thing about Pip. I mean,
Mm,
basically, her brother was he was bed hopping. He's like
mm,
okay, I don't want you, I want this new one.
yeah.
He was trying to do it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Given his age, it's kind of like, I mean, it's still fine though, isn't it? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
if you
At
look
least he did do that instead of just
exactly,
cracking on with both. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people who would have gone off for a crafty little date or two and just to
Mm.
test the waters before. Not me, I'll hasten to add. Um, and I wasn't suggesting it's all right, but that's
Mm.
plenty of people do that, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, good on him. He had a bit of a think about it. He chatted to people about it. He broke up with her. It was quite funny when he said, "Have I broken her heart?" And Pip went, "What, really? That isn't a thing?" Well, she would say it isn't a thing because she hasn't got one. So,
Do you remember the first time someone broke your heart, Kerry?
oh God, you have lots of heartbreaking moments, don't you, when you're a
Yeah,
youngster?
I wondered if
But
there was like a first one where it was sort of particularly agonising.
well, all of the relationships that I've had, I've ended them. So,
Yeah, I can imagine that.
yeah, but
Absolutely brutally.
no, 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 not at all brutally. No, far, far, far too patient. I was patient, patient, patient,
No, but I'm thinking
and
about
then,
coup de grace, the final moment.
well, I just go, "Oh, that's it. I've had enough now." Yeah, um, yeah, but I have actually ended them all.
Oh,
Yes,
never been
yeah,
dumped.
no,
Blimey,
no.
that's quite a record.
But that's not to say it was all plain sailing along the way. In fact, far from it in certain instances. But yeah, it's been me who's put the final nail
We
in
have
the
been
coffin.
dumped once.
Oh yeah, I have, haven't
Yeah,
I? With you.
yeah, we've been dumped together. But
Yeah. Yep,
yeah,
and that was
yeah,
bloody
exactly.
welcome, to be
Yeah,
honest.
we're back to our year anniversary again. Yeah,
Yeah, well, hey.
yeah, happy days. Yeah, yeah, but
Mm,
so Ben came across very well with that.
he did.
The job they've done over the last 3 months of kind of solidifying him into this kind of
Yeah.
very steady Eddie. I mean, I think
Mm.
maybe he's like a young Oliver, quite
Ooh.
fun, not
Yeah.
too serious, but also with a kind of like a kind of moral core, sort of very much governed by what is right rather than what is easy.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, I think he's going to be, he's going to be there for, he's not going to get killed off.
I hope so. It is funny that he might have a relationship with a Casey.
Everyone should. Yeah, they have done a bit of a number on Vince recently, and I haven't liked Vince. I mean, still adore Vince, but it's like, come on, let's just. It's like with
Yeah.
Justin. Justin turned up, and he was this big bull in a china shop, sort of
Mm.
like massively overconfident, kind of like sort of anachronistic sort of alpha male
Mm.
character. And Vince was a kind of slightly more nuanced and sort of sophisticated version of that. Like once you got past the
Mm.
surface, he was a lot. He had like a sort of a level of emotional complexity to him, and sort of sensitivity. And now, and it's just suddenly they're just all these different things they're asking him to do. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
that comes with the territory, but I liked the original Justin and the original Vince.
Yeah, because the OG Vince, he took no prisoners. He was
No,
like, bam, 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 I'm on top of this situation, left, right, and centre. And now he's afraid of upsetting Steph, afraid of Beth and the boyfriend, sort of really pacing around, trying to practice his speech that he was really nervous about. Very, very pussyfooting everywhere, and
mm,
it sort of doesn't quite feel right for him, does it? Maybe it's because he's trying to be different for Elizabeth.
yeah,
Uh, could be tied into that, I guess. And Elizabeth was playing a blinder, wasn't she? I loved how she just mingled with all the ex-wives, went on the dance floor, chatted to Beth, made sure that Beth knew Vince properly cared about their relationship and didn't really quite know how to go about it. So she was instrumental in getting them back together. So Elizabeth did very well. Good job she was at the wedding, I think.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I thought she was magnificent in the way that she dealt with that, and and that was, that can be, it's quite a good role to be in, isn't she? She's the sort of stepmother figure. She's
Mm,
important enough that Beth has to be on best behavior and has to sort of consider her words, but
yeah,
she's also completely separate from it and able to give that perspective,
yeah,
which is sort of,
exactly.
very useful tool. But I mean, maybe things will settle down a bit now, because I just want to get back to Vince and Elizabeth
Mm,
having a bit more fun. But
yeah, just
we will see.
just veering just quickly back to Shula. She was a bit odd with Neil, wasn't she? I thought, when they were having that discussion about, Neil broke down a little bit, didn't he, and said, "Oh, it's so nice to be back here. I've missed speaking to you.
Oh,
You can speak to me anytime about anything." And then,
why do you want to go back to this, Kerry?
I'm sorry, but then Shula was saying, "It's a two-way street. You can talk to me about
Oh,
anything as well."
oh.
Um, I know, but at one point Neil went, "Is there something you're trying to tell me, Shula?" And she went all flustered, didn't she? And sort of changed the subject as if she almost was gonna tell him that she's got the hots. So I think it is on a horizon that she's gonna just go, "I love you."
Well, yes, I mean, and goodbye being a
Mm,
vicar. So,
well, yeah.
I mean, God damn, I was about to go on a massive vicar rant. But
I'm sorry to have brought her up. Yeah, you
well,
should.
I mean,
Yeah,
it is what it is. Ultimately, Kerry, it's not your fault.
oh, good.
Yeah, it's my fault for listening to the Archers in the first place, which is something that I have no one else to blame for. So,
Mm.
there we go.
Okay, fair dues.
So I think, well, we've done what we've done, Ben. I think we've talked about most of the stuff this week, haven't we?
Mm, we have.
Yeah,
Feels that way. Yeah.
yeah. So, what are our comings and goings? I think we're Matthew's going to be back next week. You are potentially off again, aren't you? You're
I
off
ha
gallivanting.
yeah, I think I am because the government have said that Spain is staying amber.
Right. And so
today. So I am going to Mallorca on Monday morning for 10 days.
right. So expect enormous levels of smugness on the Twitterverse, everyone. Where will are you gonna be smug on the Cider Shed channel as well as your own personal account, or
I think I can still do the tweet alongs from the beach. I can still listen to Radio 4 and tweet. So I could slip a few pics in of the palm trees and what have you.
oh, please do. Matthew still owes us his top knot picture, so that's
Oh
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
He had it hidden under a hat, didn't he? But I can't do the next 2 cider shed
Right.
pods.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's back to we're off to Rambletown again. It's going to be me and me and Matthew, sort of like like two rats tied together by their tails, sort of
Don't be
like
silly.
carrying around. Oh, well, no, it was it's a lot of fun for me, but
Yeah.
I feel sorry for poor Matthew.
Oh, stop it. You were both bloody
Oh
marvellous.
well, yeah, thank you very much.
Hmm.
So where
Hmm.
can people find us on Twitter?
Yeah, on the Twitters, we are at the Cider Shed Pod. So do come along and join us. We're having a right old time of it on there. Lots of fun and lots of new followers. So thank you.
So when Matthew gets back from his holiday, I think you can find him at the Cider Shed podcast for the Facebook group and the Cider Shed pod for the Instagram feed. So yeah, that's where you can bother him. And if you want to send any suggestions about how we can improve the show, please ping them along to hello@thecidershed.com, and that's our email address. And I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, we haven't said this in a while, but please recommend us. Our numbers are doing brilliantly. Thank you very much. They sort of slowly go up each week. Kerry has a lot to do with that because she is always reaching out on Twitter to sort of find new people. But please recommend us. Please write some reviews on anywhere you can, preferably nice ones. But it's not for us to say. And yeah, and it's still a lot of fun to do. So thank you very much.
It is, yes. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in 3 weeks with a
That
bit of a
feels weird.
tan.
Do you tan?
I do tan instantly.
So
Instantly.
okay, at least one of the three of us does.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, see you, everyone.
Bye.
Hang on.